A very warm welcome again, and I hope some of you have already participated in the previous I Believe in Doing segments. Hope you enjoyed, and we hope that this month is also going to be no less than last month. Okay, all right. To get started, today we'll be kicking off the Linux and then the Git I Believe in Doing challenge, and I will start with Linux. Kiran is also here to show us few tricks, and then I will quickly just like give you a brief of what is Git, and yeah, after that you can just like get started, do things, and then there's no more talking post that. All right. So to start with, myself, I'm Sridhar Jayachandran, one of the co-founders of Crio too. But we are a learn by doing platform where you don't go through any videos or tutorials, right? Right from start, you start doing things, and we believe you'll be finding this whole thing interesting. And we also have Kiran with us. Kiran, do you want to just like quickly introduce and then?
Hey, hey guys. I think met a few of you over the past. I believe in doing challenges. So I'm Kiran Suresh. I've been working on the content in at Crio to try and make the learning as best as we can to get the most for you guys. So yeah, we'll go through the what you'll be doing with IBD today, and then we'll let you guys do the talking with your work on the terminals after that. Okay.
All right. Perfect, Kiran. Thanks a lot. So, why are you here, right? Why Linux? Linux has been there for quite some time now, right? Like a long time rather. So, what's special about Linux? Why is it getting more attention these days, right? So, the first and foremost thing that I'm not completely sure if you're aware of, it's actually the OS of the cloud. If you were to think about it, right? 90% of public cloud computing runs actually on Linux servers, correct? So if at all you have any inclination, and I'm very sure that all of you are actually just like hearing things about cloud. What is it? What are the various things that are as a part of cloud, right? So as you actually start understanding more and more about cloud, you will realize that most of it is actually using Linux, right? As a developer, which means if you ever want to get into companies or if you want to do anything with respect to cloud, your understanding of Linux is actually very, very essential. Okay, so if you go to AWS or G Cloud or Azure, okay, and then you actually go there, it's a cloud. All those three are cloud providers. I hope you understand that. They're going to give you several different things, right? They're going to give you VMs, they're going to give you storage, they're going to give you load balancers. There are several different services, all of them provide, correct? And the way that you interact with most of them is actually through Linux terminal, right? If you just like go log into a cloud machine today, right? You can go check that out. You would not actually get a GUI, right? You're not working on Windows where you have start button, there is a button to actually search for something. You don't get any of those, right? The moment you go into, you have to do anything with these cloud machines, you have to understand Linux, right? And if you have a fear of Linux, then that's going to make life more tricky. And one of our main goals today is to actually go past that. Okay, so
Hey Sridhar.
yeah, hey
All right,
Kiran, yeah,
let's put all this aside, right? I challenge you to show us something fancy on the terminal right now.
sure.
What can you use your terminal for?
Uh,
Something that you would usually, something that our users would usually do from the UI.
okay. Anybody who have a nice trick up your sleeve on Linux? I'll open my terminal. Anybody who knows something that is like very interesting on Linux terminal that you can just like do it from a single command?
Yeah,
Okay,
play the Star Wars movie. Yeah, that's a good one.
okay, I have to open the chat. Just give me one sec.
Cheese to open camera. Good.
Sudo apt install anything. Okay, cheese command. What is cheese command? Cheese. Okay, so I have to install it. Sudo apt install cheese. What does cheese do?
Cheese, I think opens up your camera.
Oh, camera. Okay, okay. I'm already on cam today, so
Yeah, yeah. So I think it might. It's already opened up.
PWD, LS, CD for navigation. Yeah, that's like day-to-day thing, right? PWD, LS, etc. is day-to-day thing. I want something fancy. Okay. Telnet, towel, backlight. Okay, see, let's see what that does. Okay, what should I do now? Oh, seems like it's has no life for hardware. I don't know what it does. Oh, I'm lost here. Quit. Okay. X Kause. Kause is fun. You hate Windows? Oh my god. Okay. Again, I have to install. I'm just like, so sudo apt install is a easy way for you to just like install any app you want, right? Think of how you would go about doing this in Windows. You just like usually go to a particular download place and then you have to download the exe or MSI. It's all from terminal. Okay. I'm just like waiting for the installation to get over. Kause. Okay, just like Kause.
I probably
Nothing
don't need to
works.
pipe it. I think you can just put a string after cause it.
Okay, I'll just like give this a try. Oh my god, there are too many tricks now. Okay. Kause, hi, how are you? Okay. So cow says, how are you? Okay. C matrix. So seems like quite a lot of Linux enthusiasts here. That's actually really good. There are a lot of nifty tricks that we can actually do from terminal. Today I'm going to just like quickly show you something. How many of you think I can tweet from terminal? Can I tweet from terminal? Have you ever tried something like that? Yeah, using API. Shall we try that? Okay. Now here you go. This is my Twitter feed and I'm going to tweet from my terminal. Let's see if it works. Here's my tweet screen. Refreshing here. Okay, welcome to I Believe in Doing September edition. Yeah, I'm using session cookie, that's right. But there are lots of fancy things that I can do. I can just like recreate the tweet, right? Instead of I believe in doing, I can say September edition. I can change things. I can post on LinkedIn. I can do almost a bunch of things from terminal. It's insanely powerful, right?
Yeah.
So just wanted
Yeah.
to quickly show that and then get started with what we have today. Just give me one sec. Yeah. All right. Now let's continue, right? I think you probably right now understand that it's way powerful if you understand what it can do and what it is doing right now. And we'll get started. Kiran, do you want to take over from here?
Yeah, Sridhar.
Yeah, I'm just like doing gimmicks. Kiran will do the real stuff here.
All right, cool.
Just start
Uh,
sharing. Kiran, take it over.
I'll share my screen. Cool. Can you guys see my screen? Cool. All right. All right. Let's get started. So, quick challenge for you guys. Okay. So, can you try and do this in on your Windows machine? Can you count the number of occurrences of your name, right? First task, and then can you replace your name with your friend's name in all of those documents, right? Is there a way to do it quickly on Windows? Can you do that? On Windows, can you do this on Windows? All right. I'll let you figure out that exercise on Windows, but in the meanwhile, we will show how to do it on a Linux terminal. Okay. So, Sridhar, can we share the Gitpod instructions for users to get access to a terminal where we can do something hands-on?
Yeah, sure.
Some
Kiran,
of
I've
you may
already shared
have
it in
a
the
Linux
Slack channel.
machine. Okay, all right. Can you guys go to the Slack channel on the IBD and try to get that Gitpod terminal for those of you who do not have access to a terminal, right? Yeah, we can share that thing here also. Sridhar, do you have the link to that we can share
Yeah,
here?
I'll do that in a second, Kiran. Yeah.
Sure, sure. Yeah, if you guys already have access to a Linux terminal, that's fine. Otherwise, just wait a minute. We'll provide instructions for you to get access to one Linux terminal, one way to do it. Yeah. So Sridhar just share the link, gitpod.io. Okay, so give us a yes on the chat once you have access to the Linux terminal. We'll give you a few minutes. Even if you're not able to set it up by then, that's fine. You can always do it later as part of the bytes which we'll be going through. Okay, but I'll give you a couple of minutes to get access to that so that you can actually execute a few things during this session itself. Cool. All right. Yeah, if you're already on Linux, well and good. All right. Now let's do this thing. Now let's try this from a Linux terminal. Okay. Right, I'll give you 1 more minute. Yeah, don't worry if you're new to Linux. This is a good place to start the IBD challenge week, right? We'll give you instructions of the bytes. So effectively, bytes for those of you who don't know are shorter learning experiences on the Crio platform. So we'll pretty much start from scratch with Linux with the bytes. Okay. So after this, at the end of this session, we'll give you the link on how to access the bytes, where to get started, and all the details about the IBD week. Okay. All right. VirtualBox, anything works as long as you have access to a Linux terminal where most of the Linux commands work. I think you're good to go. Okay, let's get started. So now let's try to do this. I'll give you the link to these two files. So try to do this on Linux. I'll show you how to do this, right? I mean, for those of you who are starting fresh, don't worry about this. Trying to show what Linux is capable of. So get these two files, count the number of occurrences of the word the, replace all the occurrences of the with and then count again, and take one of these files, replace all the text to uppercase on your terminal, right? Let me share my terminal as well. So the way to go about doing that is to fetch the files. We would do a wget, right? So let me do that here. And then fetch the other file. So then I'll count the number of occurrences of the word the with the grep command. So it says there are 18 occurrences of the in the car.txt file, which I got first, and 109 occurrences of the in the file rockets.txt, which I got next. Correct? So now I'll go and say now replace all the occurrences of these all the occurrences of the with an across all the files using the command set. How to check this? And again, the word the, it says 0 occurrences, right? Now I can also count the occurrences of the word and it says okay, a few more,
Hey,
right?
Kiran, one second.
And
You need to pause a bit. Hey, folks,
what's up?
how many of you have been here before? Like where somebody in front of you knows Linux and then they just like start typing something on the terminal and you're completely lost. How many of you have been there?
Oh, yeah, I
You're
get that.
lost? That's cool. Okay. Okay. Have you actually
Sorry,
ran
probably
into
talking
this?
too.
So this was slightly intentional. Okay. So okay, last. That's actually good to hear. So have you seen your friends do this? Like they are kind slightly comfortable with Linux, and then they just like go and type something, and they do Control R. They just like keep typing something and then press enter. Right? You see something on the screen as if it's like a Matrix movie. Right? Anybody has seen? Okay, some of you. So, uh, just from my own personal experience, right? After engineering, I didn't know Linux. Comfortable with Windows because that's where you play games, right? Age of Empires cannot be played on Linux, so you have Windows laptops, and the problem was like I joined a company, and then the peer I had, he had done some open source contribution. Okay, and which means that of course he would have a better sense of Linux. He would know how to merge file. He was comfortable with the version control. This guy, whenever I just like he works in Amazon right now, and whenever I go near him, he'll start typing tuck 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 tuck, right? It's very hard. I mean, when you don't know what they are doing, right? Even things like ls, what is ls, right? We are used to file, folder, everything from UI. If you want to sort by date, you can actually go there and do it. Suddenly when people start doing some of these, you get scared, and that's real, and I have personally gone through that. So the only way and the other thing is that people find Linux cool, like that's also developers pride, right? You typing in Vim or Emacs compared to say a text editor, a notepad, right? Notepad has probably similar capabilities, right? But typing in Emacs or Vim, right, gives you that sense of, okay, hey, you are an elite, whatever reason, right? Now this guy is a very good guy, but like when I go near him, I used to get scared. I used to say, okay, he's just like doing something, and then something shows up. He's able to diff between two file as if it's just like blindly he can do that. It used to be really scary. And the only way that you can actually overcome something like that is to actually learn, right? It might not take you more than say 5 6 hours to get the basics. Once you get the basics, some editor, then you'd be able to learn from there. The first time when you do things, it's very scary, but I think it's actually a very good chance for you to actually move past that fear, right? When somebody shows, what they do next time, right? Instead of just like looking at staring at some screen where they're just like typing something random. You don't understand what is cd, you don't understand what is ifconfig or ls, right? It's much easier grep, right? It's much easier if you were to pick few commands, right? Even if you're an absolute beginner, pick up few commands through the bytes, right? And then slowly, once you have some basics, you'd be able to do all kinds of tricks post that. Okay, so I just want to make sure everybody goes through this learning journey. Maybe you started 1 year earlier, or you're just like starting now on Linux. It's actually a good time to move past that fear, and throughout your, let's say, next 20 30 years, you will be using Linux in one form of the other, right? So it's much better to actually just like get rid of that fear once for all. And that's what we hope you can actually achieve during this I believe in doing contest. All right, Kiran, continue. Yeah. Thanks,
Yeah,
Kiran.
all right. Let's take it a bit slower this time. I'll paste out the commands as we go. So most of you have your terminal up and running, right? So now let's start from scratch, right? Let's get those two files I was talking about. Let me give you those commands. So if you have not yet done, it's okay. You can probably do it wherever you are right now. If you're not comfortable creating a directory, navigating a directory, right? All of these commands. So the goal is by the end of this week, you will be doing all of these things very comfortably. Okay. So for today's case, just copy what I'm putting out right now and paste it. I'll explain what we're doing, and then we'll make sure by the end of this week, you guys are doing this by yourselves. Okay. So I pasted two commands there. Wget is the command that you use in Linux to fetch a file, say from the internet, right? So there are two wget commands there. The first one to fetch the car.txt, the second one to bring in the text file rockets.txt. So can you run those? If you run those, you'll have and do a ls, you'll actually see those two files in your directory, right? So do the wget, hit complete, and then do the ls. Okay. So what you've done now is, it's simple, right? On Windows, if you want to go fetch a file, you have to actually open a browser, then go right click on it, say download, right? And then you have to go to the downloads directory and then copy it to where you want, right? uh, Path, you have to create, if you have a Linux terminal, you can execute those commands there. Otherwise, you will have to create an account on gitpod.io, okay, which will give you access to a terminal where you can execute these things. Yeah, that's fine. If you don't have a terminal right now, that's okay. So once you've got these files, let's do the next thing we were being asked to do, right? Which is count the number of occurrences of the word the in these two files. Okay. So effectively, this would be the command to do it, right? I'll paste it here as well. So we say, yeah, Control Shift V is the way to paste on a terminal. So what I'm doing here is grep basically searches for a particular string. I'm telling it to count the number of occurrences by using a -c. I'm telling it to search for the word the, and I'm telling it to search across all the text files here in this directory by doing star.txt. So if I do this, okay, so maybe I've overwritten that already. So let me run these things again. Okay, so now if I run the grep command, oh, why is it not? Let me remove this completely. I think it's already there. It's not being. Okay, so I'll get rockets.txt. I'll get car.txt, right? And then I'll count. So if I count this, it shows me there are 18 occurrences of the word the in car.txt. It also tells me there are 109 occurrences of the in rockets.txt. Were you able to do this? Okay, cool. So now we've accomplished the first task. We've got the files. We've counted the number of occurrences. Now we'll move on to the next trick, okay, which is to replace this word the with say an. We want to use a different article, so we'll say let's replace this. So I'll paste the command here, and I'll explain what this command does. So sed is another command which you can use to do this. So it's saying -i is do this in place, meaning sed is a stream editor, okay? So it's saying whatever comes in, I'll edit it and give you the output. So with -i, we are saying edit the files in place, right? And then we are saying substitute, S for substitute, the word the with an, and then saying G globally, right? So replace the with an, substitute the with an globally across. I'm saying star, meaning all the files. I can also say star.txt, right? So I run this command. Okay. -c in grep is counting the number of occurrences, right? If you otherwise just grep, it will show you all the occurrences. -c is giving you a count of those occurrences. It's doing one thing on top of the actual grep. So once you do this, how do you verify this? Now, if I go back and run the grep count command for the word the, I see that there are no occurrences of the in either the file car.txt or rockets.txt, right? Sed is basically doing replacing anything that comes. It's a stream editor. Anything that's coming in as a stream, it's editing it and giving you the output. -i, I'm telling it to do in place, right? I stands for in place, meaning the in whatever files you're editing, want the files to be edited, not give me an output somewhere else, right? And this is basically saying substitute the with an, and we are saying globally, not just one occurrence or two occurrences, globally across all occurrences, right? And then star is telling the command that it has to do this across all the files in this directory. Okay, were you guys able to do this? Cool. Don't worry if you are unable to do it. All of this stuff, pretty much things like this, you'll be doing in the bytes as well, right? Just to give you a flavor of what it's capable of. So now we've counted this. Now I can also do a count of the new word that we've replaced, right? Which was an. And it says, okay, there are 34 occurrences and 118 occurrences, whereas the previously was occurring 18 and 109, right? Okay, quick check to see how many of you guys are listening in. Why is this greater than the number of occurrences of the? All right, perfect. I think Mega got that right. They were already previous occurrences of an in the file, right? So yeah, perfect, perfect. Good. You guys are all paying attention. So now we'll do the last thing that we are asking to do here, which is take one of these files and convert it to uppercase, right? So if I do a cat of one of these files, say rockets.txt, it shows me there are several, most of the text here is smaller case, right? So how do I convert this to uppercase? I'll give you the command here. A revert to the original file won't be possible. Yeah, yeah, you might have to take a backup. You're overwriting it, right? It's not like in Word, you are actually in the middle of editing. If in the middle of editing, you might have time machine as a good option. All right. So this command that I just pasted, which I'll paste here as well, is saying this tr command is basically saying, okay, I can change one thing to another, right? So it's saying, okay, change. So this is the syntax. Don't worry too much about it at this point. If you learn it one by one, and once you get the hang of commands and options and what the syntax to do that, it will become simpler, right? So basically, what it's saying here is convert all lowercase letters to uppercase letters. The input using file redirection, the input is rockets.txt, and the output send it to rockets caps.txt. Okay, so if I hit enter, and now it's created a rockets caps.txt, correct? So now I do a cat of this rockets caps.txt. Cat is basically concatenate the output of this entire file to the screen, to the terminal, to the standard output, right? So if I do this, I see that all of it is pretty much uppercase, right? Whereas the previous file was lowercase, this new file that we've created using the tr command is now all uppercase, right? Yeah, tr is translate. So were you able to do this? Don't worry even if you're not able to, but I just want to make sure some of you are able to run this and then do a cat of the file, do a ls. So once you start coming up with these small tasks, right? You have a task to do and then you figure out how to do it, right? And then on top of that, with the bytes, you'll build the knowledge of what are the basic commands that are there on Linux. And Google will definitely help you. You can always say, how do I do this on Linux? It will show you a bunch of things. But then to actually use those bunch of things, you'll need some basic knowledge of what commands are, what options are, where to execute this, how to understand the command, and so on. Right? Okay. Now let's move on from this exercise. But the one thing that is sort of the takeaway here, right? We said try to do the same exercise on Windows. It's almost very cumbersome to do it. If you were to do something like this, we said count the number of occurrences of your name on all the documents in Windows, right? Which is, it's not intuitive. You don't know how to do that, right? You have to search for it, and it's actually multiple clicks to get that done. But on a terminal, things are definitely faster once you learn things. And the developers in their daily life need to do a lot of these things pretty often, right? Which is where the power of Linux comes in, right? Let's show a few cool things here. Try to execute them, but even if otherwise, just take a look. You can always play around with this after this session as well, right? So now let's say, okay, what is my IP address, right? If config is a command which will show me my IP address. So in this case, it says, okay, it is something, right? I'll say, okay, now let me check if this IP is reachable. I'm someone else. Can I say, can I ping this IP? Ping is another command I would use here, and say ping this particular IP address, right? And the command response here is telling me that, okay, it is successful. From this terminal, I'm able to reach this particular machine, which is effectively here the same machine, but this will work across the internet. Any public IP that you ping, you can do that. In fact, we can show that quickly, right? How do you see whether you can reach google.com? I say ping google.com, right? It says, okay, I'm able to get to google.com. This is the IP address of google.com, right? And it is, I'm able to send packets and receive back some packets, right? So now I also want to see, say I want to see this ping that I'm doing this particular machine. I want to see if whether the packets are actually going from the same machine. Somebody sitting out there in the internet is not pretending to be this IP address and responding back to me, right? So I can say, okay, let's try to capture some packets and see whether these packets are coming in here, right? There's a utility called TCP dump, which is basically capturing all the packets coming in on the machine. I will say minus I any, which meaning any interface on this machine, capture all the packets, right? I do this. But now I get this error, right? It says you don't have permission to capture on the device. TCP dump is a thing which with which you're capturing packets, which is not a very safe thing to do. You better know what you're doing. So you don't have permission. So what should I do now, right? So here it is saying you don't have the privileges, but you can do a sudo. Sudo is like super user. Perfect. I think some of you got the gist there. Say sudo TCP dump minus I any, right? It says, okay, I want to authenticate you. I don't believe you are the real person. Tell me, prove to me that you are the real person. Only then I'll let you do this TCP dump. So since I do this, it blows up in my face, right? It's showing me all these things. Is my screen okay for the rest of you?
Yeah, it's slightly lag, but it's fine.
Okay, all right, cool. So now this ping is going on. So now, say for example, I want to improve on top of this command, right? It's showing me too many things. I'm not able to see whether these packets are coming in. So I'll add another filter on top of this. I'll say ICMP. ICMP is the protocol which ping uses. Don't worry, you don't need to know any of these. These are just as and when you start exploring things. These are the way you. This is the way you start building commands, doing tasks, right? So you ran TCP dump, it said no permission. You added sudo, you ran it, it ran, but gave you a lot more things. Now you need to do a slight improve on it and say, show me only these packets. So you can add a filter, right? So I do this right now, no packets are coming in, no ICMP packets are coming in. That's because I've stopped this ping. So now let me start this ping. And as soon as I start that, I can start seeing packets being captured here, right? You can even dump these packets to a file, open it up somewhere else and continue working on it, right? Now let's do a quick thing here. Let's try out a quick chat client. Okay, the same thing will work across the internet as long as you have public IPs. But for now, let me just connect between these two terminals and create a chat client. I'll use the netcat command nc and say, okay, let me start up a server. So if I say minus L, that basically means start listening. L stands for listening, right? And say port 1234. So I can start listening on port 1234. And I can also say minus V, which is say give me verbose output, right? I'll say minus V and start. Right now it said, okay, listening on 0.0.0.0, which is effectively meaning all the IP addresses on this machine. I'm listening on that IP address on this particular port, which is 1234, right? Okay, so now this is listening. So how do I use NC, which is kind of utility that is there for Linux, right? It can do a lot of networking things. So now for netcat, if I give it the IP address and port, it can connect to that. So I say localhost, meaning same machine, and the port where I'm listening is 1234. So if I do this, you can see here the server says connection received. Okay. 127.0.0.1 is local IP address for that machine. 0.0.0.0 is all the IP addresses on that machine. If I do if config, it showed me two or three different interfaces, two or three different IP addresses, right? So 0.0.0.0 is effectively all the IP addresses on that machine. So now I've connected. So this now has become a chat client. Okay, let's see how it will work. So say hello from the client end, right? So that message got received on the server. It actually showed it here. So now the server wants to respond back. Yes, back to at the client, right? So very simple things like this. You can build things very quickly. You can use a lot of things out of the box. Okay, which makes Linux the power that it is, right? So a few more things we can do to try out this. We can try to see, for example, if we run this, right, we can see whether it's actually running on this.
Hey, Kiran, do you want to switch off your video? It's kind of slightly lagging. Hello?
Actually, yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. Can you switch off your video maybe? Yeah.
Yeah. I switched off the video. Can you guys
Yeah,
hear me
yeah.
now?
Now it works.
Okay, cool. Yeah, sorry about that. So you can always check all of these things, right? You can choose any port, right? So I can say netstat shows me all the network statistics, including the ports that everybody is using, right? So I can say or 1234. Otherwise, it will give me a lot of things which I want to see, don't want to see. So now it is showing me only things that has 1234 in it because that is what I'm looking for. And it says there is this process whose name is netcat, whose process ID is this, and this process is listening on this IP address, and this process is listening on this IP address.
Hey, Kiran, your voice is breaking a bit.
Uh,
Hey, Kiran, your voice
is
is
it better
breaking
now?
quite a bit. You might want to just like quickly repeat that part of the thing alone, the net start part.
Yeah, okay, cool. Is it better now?
Yeah, slightly better, but I think it periodically lags a bit. Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay, okay, sure. All right. Yeah, again, sorry about that. So basically, right, I'm saying here, when you started up this netcat as a server, you are instructing it to listen on a particular port. How do you check whether it's actually listening on that port? You can do that by running the netstat command. With I've put in some filters here for it to show me a few things, be more, give me more information. And then I'm also grepping for a particular pattern in the output. If I run just this, right, it'll actually show me a lot of things, right? But then I'm interested in only checking if that one port is open. So I'll actually grep, meaning search for that text in the output. And it gives me only the output which has that particular text 1234 in it, right? So I can see that the process called netcat is which has a process ID of this is actually listening on this IP address and this particular port. Okay, this should work across different servers as well, as long as it's a public IP address accessible outside, right? Okay, so now a few more things, right? As and when you go through these bytes, these are the things you'll actually be learning. So you'll be learning a lot about file system, how the files are organized, what is the directory structure, and so on, right? And then processes, what are the kind of process, how do you get process ID, how do you stop them, start them, and so on. And then system information, what is your CPU, memory, hard disk, and so on. And you'll also be going through some scripting. Okay, so let's take an example that you will actually be working on in the byte. Okay, so let's say we say you can do a lot of data analytics from the terminal itself. Okay, so let's see how to do one of these log analysis. Let me open up a log. There are a bunch of logs here at this link. So let's say I pick up one set of logs here, which are say Hadoop logs. Okay, so if I go into this, I see there are a number of logs. So I have and across many days, many hours, each directory contains a huge number of logs. So these are Hadoop. Hadoop is basically like a big data platform, right? So it's a software which runs, say you're working in the Hadoop team, right? And or you have a Hadoop installation running somewhere and you want to analyze how the installation is performing at that point, how it's actually processing, whether it's overloaded, whether it's running into errors, and so on. Okay, so you will have to fetch all of these files. You'll be doing this as part of the byte, so I'm just doing a quick demo. So you get this whole bunch of tar zipped files, right? And let's say I have a file which is like a shell script. Okay, let me quickly demo that shell script and try to show you how easy it would be to analyze a whole bunch of logs if you were to do it on a Linux terminal, right? So let me get that analysis script from the internet. So I've got it. So it shows this is the file that it is, right? So let me open this up quickly so that you guys can see what is in there. Where did this open it? Okay, so as you guys can see, it's a pretty small script. A lot of content here is just comments and print statements. Echo is all print statements. These hash ones are all comments. So it's doing a few things, right? Similar to the small things we did. We did a small grep, account kind of things, right? This is effectively what the script is doing. It has put together a bunch of things and saying, okay, give me intelligent statistics that you can gather from this entire Hadoop log tar file that you got. Tar file is basically a bunch of files, right? It has many directories, many files within the directories. They're saying, let me do this. So now I say, let me run this script. You'll actually be doing this as part of the byte. So where you can take a look at the file in more detail, analyze each specific command that you're running there, right? So I've just given it execute permissions, and then I run this file. Okay. If I run this file, it says, okay, incorrect invocation. It says you have to, once you invoke this, you also have to tell it which directory to use for files. Okay, I'll say temp some log analysis directory which it can use. So what I'm trying to do here is fetch that tar file of huge bunch of Hadoop logs and saying, give me intelligent data out of it, right? And when I say intelligent data, I've told it what to do. I'm saying count the number of errors, give me a histogram of which particular files among those log files has more errors and so on. Now, when I run this, it's actually downloading the files. And once it downloads that bunch of files, it will actually run a bunch of analysis. I mean, very simple, right? That analysis is not the output is sophisticated, but the analysis itself is all sort of one liners put together. So what does this show? It says, okay, downloaded number of log files is about close to 1,000 files. It says number of errors seen are these, number of fatal messages seen are 17. So these are the ones we should be concerned about, right? It can actually filter out those 17 different logs and show it to you. And then number of exceptions, informational messages. It's summarizing the entire bunch of 1,000 files very quickly here, right? And this is like a histogram, right? It is showing this file. This is the file that has maximum exceptions, right? It is huge. And some of these files have smaller number of exceptions. So like this one again is pretty bad. So you can always go in and say who wrote this particular log, right? At which point, what time. There will be some timestamp here which will tell you this when this log file was written, right? So you'll do these kind of things routinely on your software job. You'll always be writing log files. You write a software and then it doesn't work. You have to figure out what's not working, right? Then you have to pull out some analysis out of it. This probably is the worst offender, right? This file is huge number of errors there, right? And so on. And finally saying, okay, I also want to pull out logs for a particular minute. It's actually doing that. It's showing me at this given minute, which you're asking me to fetch data for, these are the log files. Among those 1,000 log files, only these log files have the data for that particular minute. You're saying, okay, something went down in this minute, right? The customer comes and says, in these 5 minutes or this particular hour, everything blew up, nothing was working. You try to pull up those files and do some more things, right? And then you say, what are the key tasks, key things that happen on Hadoop? What are the, how many times are the reduce tasks are there? Map and Hadoop is a map and reduce kind of, it uses technology, right? So how many times are those tasks shutting down, coming up and so on? You can do any of these. You start off with, okay, I have these files. What are the statistics or data that I want to analyze from these? And then say, okay, how do I do it? You build one chunk at a time, like we were doing here. It's already open, but I'll just say open reloadly. Very quick, right? So each of this data is pretty much running sort of one single thing, saying some find, or it is saying just grep, right? Very simple commands. Each of them is able to generate one kind of data, right? So you'll be doing a bunch of these things. So this is one of the log files you'll be analyzing. Similarly, you will also be analyzing other kinds of log files within the bytes, right? And then you'll move on to uh, automation, right? Generally, good developers are lazy developers. If you're doing anything repeatedly, you don't really want to do that. You want to automate that kind of task. Okay. So you'll go through examples of how to automate this. For example, the Hadoop log analysis that we saw. If I want to schedule that every 5 minutes, how do I do that? How do I send that report to someone every 5 minutes, right? That is also something you'll go through. You can do a lot of complex tasks on the terminal. You can start up a server. You can install software. We already did. Sridhar did a demo of that. You can upgrade all of your software very quickly with one single command. You can launch your any of your UI kind of things quickly. Say I can say Google Chrome, it will actually open up a terminal, right? So all the tasks that you can do pretty much on the UI, you can effectively do it faster. Say install Docker and invoke a Docker container with which is running Nginx, right? It will take a minute if I do this on a terminal. Things are very fast. A lot of things very quickly can be done, and Linux is very practical, right? You have a lot of resources on the internet which will help you. All you need to have is that curiosity, and once you have a base of what commands look like, where to execute, what are the switch statements that can be done, and so on, it becomes very easy, right? Speeds up your development, and it's also highly secure even for a personal computing thing, right? And that's the reason it's used in most enterprise solutions, but even for a personal use it's highly secure. Given that it's open source, you have a lot of people contributing it. Any small uh, problem that's detected is fixed very quickly. Okay, with that I'll hand it over to Sridhar to walk you guys through the Git part of the IBD that you'll be doing, and also anything else that's left, anything else Sridhar wants to talk about. Okay, over to you, Sridhar.
Thanks, Kiran. Just one sec. We'll start sharing. Hope you're able to see my screen. Right, you should be seeing Git. All right. So I hope you all understand that the first part of it is Linux, and even if you didn't follow everything that Linux, sorry, Kiran just like walked through, the byte starts all the way from beginning, right? It starts all the way from how do you actually compare your Windows to Linux, and then it will slowly get more and more complicated from there. So you should be able to do it completely from scratch. And some of you might have difficulty with not being able to get access to terminal. There are several ways. We have already shared it on the Slack channel. So please make sure that you go to the Slack channel and then get started. All right. So the second part of the IBD is Git, right? Why is Git? Why do you have to know Git, right? Linux and Git kind of like every professional developer at some point in time in their life, right? Like even if not today, you would have to start using, and you should be extremely comfortable with both. Git is essentially a version control system. For people who have not used Git today, right, the easiest way to think of it is like a Google Doc, right? What does Google Doc give you? Think of what you used to do earlier, right? Let's say you have to create your resume, right? What will you do? You'll actually create a resume in Microsoft Office, and then share the doc over email with 10 people. Maybe they're giving you comments, and then you change it, send it back. That's a whole lot of wastage of time, right? And then this also becomes extremely hard, like to do collaboration at a fast pace. So think of code, right? If you have a large code base in your company, how would collaboration happen? Correct. So this is where version control system comes in, and Git is one of the most famous version control system. Here it lets you collaborate very fast, right? So you can write code, I can write code, and then both our code, there are intelligent ways by which both our code can work together, right? So it's very collaborative. It's version control, which means that, let's say, even by mistake you actually delete something, or you make a change but you want to go back to a change that you made 1 year back, everything is actually preserved. This is also again very similar to Google Docs, right? So whatever you type in Google Docs, you go to view version, and then it will show the revision history. You can go to any of the version over there. It gives the same kind of capability over here, and access anywhere, of course, right? Now the goal for you is, if you're not done Git before, the idea is to pick up the basics of Git and then get your famed green dot. I hope all of you know what the green dots on Git pages. It's kind of like these days, lot of companies, as a part of their job description, right? They say, okay, hey, share your Git profile, right? They want to look at your projects in GitHub profile, right? So the first step is to actually just like get started. Okay, so roughly speaking, this is how things are going to evolve. You start with the Linux, right? Make sure that you understand Linux, and then there's one basic byte, and then one slightly advanced byte, which will help you go into some of the more detailed ones around Linux, like writing scripts, etc. It will be very interesting. It also helps you understand OS better, right? Because you are dealing with process, you are dealing with networking, right? When you start working in Linux, you also understand networking operating system naturally much better, right? and then you move on to Git, understanding the basics of Git, right? And you'll just like do basic commands and then get your first dot in Git. All right, and that's about it. You'll have a surprise challenge using Linux and Git as well. All right, all of you ready to get started? Yes, cool. Next steps, we'll share this next steps in the Slack channel as well. If you log into Crio.do page, you'll actually, once you log in using any of your Gmail ID, right, you will actually see this bytes section, right? It's a tab. If you click on the tab, there is something called Developer Essentials. You go to Developer Essentials, start with Linux Basics, and then you can finish the Git Basics and then come to Linux Basics 2, which is essentially slightly more detailed. Linux Basics 2 is optional, but Linux Basics 1 and Git Basics are mandatory. All right. So I hope you are also interested in actually doing the surprise challenge, right? So you'll be learning Linux, the basics of Linux. You'll be learning the basics of Git. What can you do with it? Any ideas? You learn scripting, right, as a part of Linux. You'll learn version control in cloud. What can you do with this? Contribute to Linux, open source learning, cool. I'm thinking of a quick project. I'm thinking of a quick project that you can do just by these two skills. You know how to write a script to detect file changes, right? You know how to have version control in cloud. Just like using these two, how do you actually create an interesting project? Yes, just these two, this specific thing. You know what file on your machine, Linux machine, has changed. Okay, that's a very simple command. Okay, somebody has got it right. You can actually create a automatic backup and syncing of files. You can actually create your own Google Drive. Does that sound exciting? It's not too hard, but it is definitely it's definitely doable. And then you just like see that in a very short amount of time you can do something like this. Okay, so we'll not give too much of description over this. This is for you to figure out. But if you were to think of it, with Linux you can write a simple script to actually detect if there are any file changes happening in a particular directory. Okay, and then whatever file changes are happening, you also know that you have a way to periodically push changes to cloud using Git, right? If you create a GitHub repo, right, you can just like periodically push things. That's what a Google Drive is, right? So you can actually do this and then play around with this, right? This would make a very, very interesting project that you can actually add to your resume. All right. Okay, so here are, I think you already know it. Just to make sure that we don't miss it out, we believe that it's going to be a lot of learning experience, as well as there are going to be rewards, right? You have to finish the bytes, and then which is the challenges, and then you have the surprise challenge as well, the Google Drive thing, right? That's also like, I mean, we hope more and more people can actually do that, and then just like get the true power of it, right? And also you would be writing a blog post, and the rest of the details are kind of same like last IBD, right? And people who are completing the bytes would also be getting a certificate of achievement to showcase your Git and Linux proficiency. All right. Oh yeah, goodies. Yeah, the top performers get something. Oh yeah, top performers get goodies. All right, that's about it. I hope all of you have a great time learning Linux and Git, and I also believe that like quite a lot of you get rid of your fear and build a G cloud, G drive by yourself. Right, that would be that is when we would be satisfied, not just like doing the bytes. Okay, is there any that's about it. So you can actually join the Slack channel, and usually a lot of interactions happen in the Slack channel where you can help out your peer. End of day, it's not a competition, right? It's a way for you to learn. So please do help your friends. That's definitely, you being a good citizen is going to be helpful for you as well as your friend. So please help them, and all the interactions from now on will move to the Slack channel. Okay, and in the Slack channel, if you're stuck, feel free to ask for help. And one more thing I want to tell you guys is, it's very natural for you to just like put up your hand for every single thing that you don't understand. But first do the googling yourself. Don't outsource googling to somebody else. First try to google, and then you might not understand certain things. It's okay, take time, learn. And only if you're not able to solve a problem within say half hour or 1 hour, then ask friends. Okay, don't try to just like put up your hand for everything. It's you have to become an independent problem solver. That's one of our key goals. All right, so please make sure that you join the Slack channel. All the instructions will be there to get started. All right, sounds good, guys. Have a great day then.
Perfect, guys. Good luck, and yeah, hope most of you get make the most out of this. Okay, bye.
Thanks, bye guys.